So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be continuing the series of going through some big mark questions taken from some higher GCSE exam papers. Now as always, I'll include a copy of the questions and the mark scheme as a link in the description below, which I strongly recommend you have an attempt at the questions before watching this video. Now before we get started working through these big past exam questions, a little reminder that you can gain access to the copy of the questions by click on the link in the description. And I strongly recommend you have a go at those questions just so you can see how well you've done on these particular, I would say, challenging exam questions, and then continue watching the video as we go through the answers. Now I'll also include a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which has links to lessons that go over each of the maths topics in greater detail, along with exam walkthroughs, audits and topic tests as well, which will add much value to your revision. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1 says work out the value of 8 squared multiplied by 8 divided by 8 to the power of 9 divided by 8 to the power of 5, and we're going to give our answer as a decimal. So for this, the first thing we need to do is work out the value of each of the brackets, preferably using indices. So here we've got 8 squared multiplied by 8 divided by 8 to the power of 9 divided by 8 to the power of 5. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to simplify each of the brackets. Now although the second 8 hasn't got a power, if there's no power then it's got power to the 1. Now when we're multiplying we add the powers, so that's going to be 8 to the power of 3 divided by, and then work out the second bracket, and when we're dividing we take away the powers, so that's going to be 8 to the power of 4. All that's left for me to do is then simplify this. So again, when we're dividing we take away the powers, so it's going to be 8 to the power of 3 minus 4, which is minus 1, and which can be written as a fraction as 1 over 8, which as a decimal, which is what the question is asking us to do, that's going to give me a value of 0.125. And again, if you're not sure about the decimal conversion, then I would go back old school and divide and use the bus stop method to divide and do it by division. But our answer there is going to be 0.125. Moving on to our next question, it says that a music company releases 10 albums. The scatter diagram shows for each album the number of downloads for the first day and the number of CDs sold on the first day. A line of best fit has been drawn for you on the scatter diagram, and there it is, and it says that the scattergram shows positive correlation. Describe the relationship between the number of downloads and the number of CDs sold. So for this, all we need to do is just describe what a positive correlation looks like in this context. So here we can see that if we've got positive correlation, it means as the x-axis increases, so I can say as, now the x-axis represents the number of downloads, so as the number of downloads increases, so does the number of CDs bought. So you could say along the lines of that the number of downloads is the same as, or the pattern of the number of downloads is the same as the pattern of the number of CDs. So if you sell more downloads, you'll also sell more CDs, or vice versa. But something along those lines will be good enough for the 1 mark. For question B, it says the company earns £2.50 for each download and £3 for each CD sold. The company releases another album. On the first day it has 9,000 downloads. Estimate the total amount the company earns from downloads and CDs of the album that day. So from this, the key bit of information here is that the company has, or the band or the CD has 9,000 downloads. So from the scatter diagram, what we need to do is look at number of downloads, which is along the horizontal axis, find 9,000, and what we then need to do is just project up. Now using our line of best fit, we can then estimate the number of CDs sold, which if you do it accurately comes out to be around 5,400. So then looking at the data that we've been given, we've got £2.50 for each download. Well, that's going to be £2.50 multiplied by 9,000. And then we've got £3 for each CD. Well, we're estimating that there's going to be 5,400. So all that's left for me to then do is work out the amounts for each of those elements, in which that's going to be, and let me just type that into my calculator. So we've got 9,000 multiplied by £2.50, and that gives me a value of 22,500, and then £3 multiplied by £2.50, and we get an answer of 16,200. So all that's left for me to then do is add those two amounts together, in which I get an answer of £38,700. Then moving on to question 3, it says 70% of a number is 350, and it says that for me to work out 120%. Well, if 70% is equal to 350, then I can then work out what 10% is by dividing by 7, and 350 divided by 7 gives me a value of 50. And then from this, what I then want to work out is 120%. So I then multiply this number by 12. So I do the same to 50. So that's going to be 50 times 12. Work that out in any which way you want to do. So if you want to use the grid method or you want to use the column method, it's entirely up to you, but you should get an answer of 600. Moving on to question 4, it says shape A has a circle with radius of root 17 over 2. Shape B has a sector of a circle with a radius of 5. Which shape has the greater area, A or B? So for this, with a circle, remember that the formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared. And for the area of a sector, that the formula is theta over 360 multiplied by pi r squared. So then working with the circle, that's going to be pi multiplied by the radius squared, which is root 17 over 2 squared, which is going to give me pi times, now root 17 squared is going to give me 17, 2 squared is going to give me 4, so that's going to give me an answer of 17 over 4 pi. Then working out the area of a sector, using the formula, that's going to be 60 over 360 multiplied by pi multiplied by 5 squared. And that simplified is going to give me 1/6 multiplied by pi multiplied by 25, which gives me an answer of 25 over 6 pi. Now what I want to do is compare these two values. Now if this was on a calculator paper, then I just simply type in the values and I get the two areas. But if we assume that this is on a non-calculator paper, then 17 over 4 pi, what we want to do is get a common denominator. Now a common denominator of 4 and 6 is 12. So if I multiply the fraction by 3, then that's going to give me an answer of 51. So the circle is equal to 51 over 12, and the sector, which is 25 over 6 pi, and if I write there's a fraction over 12, that's multiplying by 2. So now I can easily compare, without the use of a calculator, now that the denominators are the same in the fraction, those two values. And as you can see, this is the area of A, this is the area of B. So as 51 over 12 pi is greater than 50 over 12 pi, the circle has a greater area. Something along those lines would be absolutely fine for the 5 marks. Moving on to question 5, it says in the diagrams all lengths are in centimetres. The two shapes are equal areas. Work out the ratio of k to m. So first of all, let's work out the area of the triangle. Now to work out the area of the triangle, it's base times height divided by 2, so that's going to be 12 times k divided by 2, which is 6k. And the area for the L shape, well, if I break it up as it's a compound shape into two rectangles, this rectangle is going to be 3m, this rectangle here is going to be 2k, so that's going to be 3m plus 2k. Now it says that they are equal areas, so if I make the two things equal to each other, I get that. And then from this, what we then get is 4k equals 3m. Now the next thing for us then to do is then to put all the letters on one side and all the numbers on the other. So if I take Now, because we want k to m, we want k at the top. So I'm going to take this m over to the side and then take the 4 over to the side. So what we end up with is k over m equals, and that's going to be 3 over 4. And then from this, well, now it's as a fraction. I can then write it as a ratio. So k to m is in the ratio of 3 to 4. And there we go. Question 6, it says here is an identity in x, and we've got 5 lots of 2x plus d is identical to cx plus 30. It says work out the values of c and d. So for this, what we need to do is first of all expand the brackets on the left hand side, so we get 10x plus 5d can be algebraically written as cx plus 30. Now comparing the coefficients of x, we know that 10x equals cx, so 10 equals c, and that's been simplified, so we could say c equals 10. And then for the coefficient of d, or the constant I should say, we've got 5d equals 30. So here from this we can divide by 5, so we get d equals 6. So we get c equals 10 and d equals 6. Then moving on to our last question, it says Cora is revising for 2 subjects, history and French. The time she spends revising is in the ratio of history to French in the ratio of 7 to 2. The time she spends revising for history is 20 hours more for French. Work out the total time she spends revising. So the first thing we need to notice here is that the difference between the 2 subjects of revising is 20 hours. So 20 hours is the difference. Now looking at the difference in the parts, so the difference in parts equals 5, and the difference in time equals 20 hours. So that means that 5 parts equals 20 hours. So therefore 1 part is going to equal 4 hours. So then going back to the ratio in which we know that history and French is in the ratio of 7 to 2. So history, which equals 7 parts, is going to be 7 times 4, which is 28. And for French, that's 2 parts, and that's going to be 2 times 4, which is 8. And then to work out the total time, we just simply add those 2 numbers together, in which we get an answer of 36 hours. And there we go.